Hi and welcome to this video. So my name is Julian Koma from Market Update Premium. We trade growth and momentum stocks. Today I want to show you what to look for to identify a 5-star setup, and I will go with you through some example so that you can also study them by yourself. So let's dive in. What makes a great setup? So you can see here the stock QS. We traded that here in this big up move from July to, or from beginning July to end of July. It made a huge move here. And what you can see here, and let's remove the last couple of bars here, is a very typical breakout setup that we are trading and looking for. So a stock that made a big move, you can see that QS was up 80%, almost 90% in just 2 days. It gapped up on good news, so they had a breakthrough in their battery production. And then instead of chasing this setup, I waited for a very clear setup that I can identify and that I can repeat over and over again. And that was this short consolidation here over a couple of days. This is a perfect setup, to be honest, 5 stars, because the stock made a huge move, pulled back a little bit to the EMA 8 here, to this purple line, and got tight over a couple of days. And this is exactly what we waited for. And we bought the setup when it was breaking out of this consolidation here. And you can see that it exploded higher after that. There was so much demand for the stock that it directly followed through here. And this is, this is exactly what you want to wait for. You want to have a stock with big momentum on the upside. You want to have a catalyst in the background. And the catalyst could be a great news. The catalyst could be a new product that is coming out, or the catalyst could also be great numbers. This stock here had no sales at all and not really EPS. You can see that here in this table, but it had a great catalyst because they are producing, or they are developing a new battery technology. And in that time, when QS was breaking out, a lot of other battery stocks were on the move too. So it is a hot sector, and very often you find great setups in a hot sector. And these patterns here, these patterns repeat over and over again, and they develop in a market situation where the market is in a very clear uptrend. We can measure that by our market trend model. And on the other side, when you have a hot sector, and when so much money is coming into the stock that it absorbs absorbs all the selling here, and on the other side you can see that institutions are supporting the stock here around the EMA 8, and this is exactly what we look for. Big move, great catalyst, support around moving averages, and a stock going sideways for maybe 2 or 3 weeks, but sometimes the stock is only going sideways for a couple of days. And you can see very clearly the volatility contraction here. So what is a volatility contraction? You have huge volatility here. You can see that by the big daily changes here. And then the daily changes are becoming smaller and smaller and smaller. This is a volatility contraction. And volatility contraction always means that selling is drying up, otherwise the price would go down. But also buying is drying up a little bit, because otherwise the stock would explode to the upside. So it's a kind of equilibrium. But on the other side, when a stock made a big move, usually you have a lot of potential sellers in the stock that wants to take profits. So they usually push down the prices. But if there is enough support and enough buying in the stock, so that means enough demand, then the stock can go sideways and become tighter and tighter and tighter. And that creates these patterns. And these patterns repeat over and over again. They appear in strong bull markets, and they appear almost in every strong bull market, and in a lot of different stocks categories, especially in stocks categories and themes that are in a high demand in the stock market. So you will not find these patterns in, let's say, boring and dull stocks, I don't know, banks or maybe insurance or some healthcare companies, etc., because there is not enough demand and not enough momentum in these stocks. And it's really important to wait for these great setups. Not every stock will be such a setup. And sometimes you also take setups that are not so perfect like that. And that's totally fine. You can also make money with 4-star setups and not only 5-star setups. But these are the trades and these are the setups that pay at the end for all the small losses and also create a profit. And of course, you want to have selling rules too, right? So we sold a lot of the stock here into the strength, and then we took the rest when it started to break the EMA 8 here and EMA 21. Let me show you a couple of more examples with a very similar setup. MVST was a stock that we traded also. And look at that here. Look at this setup here. The stock made a big move here, went sideways when the general stock market was in a correction, made a huge move here. It was up 80% in just 3 days, got extremely tight here, and then it was breaking out of this consolidation here. And you can see it followed through a little bit, it built another base, it followed through and moved higher and higher. And members were able to hold on to the stock for all the big move here and sold when they turned around here around the EMA 21. So this is a great picture. This is a great setup, and it's also a great picture, by the way, right? So these are the dream setups that you want to wait for. And you can see that the stock was able to provide similar setups here in the past. So for example, here in November 24, it was really tight after a big move, but it was a little bit too cheap here. But it made a big move, found support around the moving averages and started to move higher. It's also a battery stock, by the way. So similar sector as QS, but it set up earlier. Then let's have a look at TMC, another stock that we traded this year. And here you can see a very similar setup. The stock made a big move here. It was up 150% in just, a couple of days. Then it got very tight here. It consolidated over the time around the EMA 21. It had a great catalyst in the background. So it was rare earth metals, a theme that we discovered very early. And it's not general rare earth metals, it's especially in the US. So the US wanted to or wants to become independent from China, which is the biggest deliverer or the biggest rare earth metal country in the world. So this is one of these stocks or one of the companies which could help the US to do that. And this is, a clear catalyst. And you can see that this stock reacted very good to news. So there was a huge demand here. You can see that in the big volume spikes. And that's another clue, right? You want to look for huge volume coming into the stock. And in that case, the stock traded on average 3.47 million shares per day. And on these days, you had volume of 30, 40, or even 60 million. So 10 to 20 times the average volume. And then this thing got tight, and then you can see it exploded here on the upside. These patterns will not work in every market situation. They will only work in great bull markets when you have a lot of strength. But the thing is that in bad market periods, when the market is very choppy or when the market is in a downtrend, you will not find a lot of these setups. And very often these setups are too choppy or are not looking great. So that means the market helps you to identify these great setups and only deliver these great setups in the right market situation. And here you can see that the stock built another base, which is similar, but a little bit more volatile. And we were able to trade it all the way up here with the EMA 21 and sold on this day here. The last shares, we already took a lot of profits here into the strength. So then let me show you some examples from the past to just show you that these patterns repeat over and over again. So this is NVAX, Novavax. And if we zoom out a little bit and go back a couple of years, you can see a wonderful setup here. It got really tight. I traded that also back then in 2020. I did not trade it all the way up here, but a perfect setup. You can see that here. It moved up 300% in just a couple of days. It was the right stock at the right time. The theme was COVID-19. You can see it got very tight after this explosive up move around the EMA 21. And then it broke out and exploded here on the upside. And I think it moved, what is it here? 270% to the peak. And if you follow the EMA 8 rule, you were able to make the most out of that. So, but here, wonderful textbook setup. fulfilled exactly all the criteria: big momentum move, tight consolidation, hot theme, great story in the background. So then another one, let's look at this one, which had a couple of great setups in the past. Riot, a crypto mining company, and you can see here a big move, you can see here a big move. And let's have a look at this setup here, which is a great one. So textbook setup, the stock made a huge move here over a couple of weeks, 600%. Then it pulled back into the EMA 21 here, went sideways. We had a great theme in the background, crypto mining and also Bitcoin. It got very tight here, you can see that, and then it gapped higher, so broke out, and you were able to buy that here on the breakout. And then it followed through very quickly on the upside and made a huge move here, 200%. But you know, this stock was in a demand many times before, and you can see that here in 2017, it made also big moves. So that was very early in the crypto theme. And at that time, I remember that very good. It was not a cryptocurrency company. It was more a biotech company. So Riot bought a biotech company and then merged together with this company. So here you can see a perfect setup. The stock made a huge move, 230%, went sideways for a couple of days and then exploded here on the upside. And here's another great setup. So you can see that the stock went up 200%, went sideways for a couple of days. The setup was a little bit more choppy, but you can see it exploded higher after that. So very similar setups. The same is true if we look at Bitcoin itself with GBTC. And if we go back a little bit in time, so for example, into the early phases of Bitcoin, you can see that here a lot of great setups appeared. Here is the first one. So big move, consolidation over a couple of weeks, and then it started to explode higher. Here's another one, which is not so great, by the way, but it also got very tight after an explosive move and also moved higher. And here's another one. So explosive move, the stock, or in that case, the trust was up 50%, went sideways for a couple of days, pulled back a little bit, and then moved higher afterwards. So also Bitcoin was able to produce a lot of great setups here in the past. And let's have a look at another one, MicroStrategy, which is Bitcoin related, of course. And here's another great setup here. You can see that the stock moved up 80%, almost 80% in just a couple of days, then got very tight around the EMA 8, exploded higher, and then followed through very quickly. So good volume also at the breakout. And if we zoom out a little bit, you can see that here in 2020, MicroStrategy also had a great setup here. So it moved very strongly over a couple of weeks, 120%. Then it got very tight around the EMA 21, EMA 8 here, and then it broke out. So it was not 100% clear. So it was not so clean like Novavax, for example, or Riot, but it got tight and then it started to rally and moved higher. So MicroStrategy was another great example. And the important thing is, and this is why, why the setups look very similar. These are stocks that are in a huge demand. The theme is very popular at the time. This is a hot theme. And this is what you want to look for. You don't want to trade dull and boring stocks. You want to make sure that there is a huge demand for a theme, for a breakthrough technology or very innovative technology like Bitcoin or like crypto at that time, right? Blockchain, crypto, that was very new at the time, 2017 and 2020. And that's the reason why these stocks made so big moves at the time. So another one, CGC, had also great setups in the past. It was a cannabis stock, and here in 2018, 2017, it produced big moves on the upside. That was a time when these cannabis stocks traded mostly in the OTC market, so they were not so liquid at the time. But it also not traded at 160, so the stock had some splits. and the volume was much higher at the time. So, but you can see here a wonderful setup. The stock made a big move here, 75% in just a couple of days, then consolidated, got very tight, and then started to follow through here on the upside. Same is true here, by the way. You can see that it followed through very nicely on the upside. And if we go back a little bit more in time, but the stock was more illiquid at that time. I remember that very good. So here it made also nice moves after it built a 5-star pattern. I mean, look at how tight the thing got. So, but at that time it was trading in the OTC market. It was not so liquid and it was not so easy to trade, to be honest. So, but also other stocks like Tesla, for example, provided also very good setups. Here's a 5-star setup, a recently 5-star setup that I also traded. Stock made a big move, got tight here and then broke out here on the upside. But if we go back a little bit more in time, when Tesla was a little bit more hot and EV stocks, so electric vehicle stocks, exploded on the upside, you can see here many good setups. So the first one here, Tesla moved 58%, got very tight around the EMA 21, EMA 8 here, and then followed through very nicely on the upside. Then you can see here another great setup. Tesla made a big move, 120%, got very tight around the EMA 8, followed through, but was not able to really make a big move afterwards. But here you can see it's shaping up extreme nicely. We have a very clear breakout level. That's also important. We have a clear breakout level here. And then you can see Tesla was able also to follow through very quickly. Here's another one which is not so great, but it's still a setup. So, and here is another one which looks a little bit different, but it is also nice because you can see big move here, almost 90% or 90% in just a couple of days. Then it got very tight, had a shakeout, and then gapped higher, probably on news at the time, and then followed through here very nicely before it reversed. So not all of these setups will work, right? I mean, here you see the stock was also very tight, but much more volatile before. So probably not a 5-star setup. And then it also failed quickly, but it had a gap up here, a breakaway gap, and followed through. So, but these are the stocks you want to wait for and the opportunities you want to wait for. And I will show you a crazy recent example here. That is RJC, which made it a crazy move here. You can see that. I have to switch to the logarithmic chart to show you the setups here. But this stock was too illiquid for me to trade. So when we zoom out a little bit, you can see the same pattern here. It made a huge move. It was up 1,445. It got very tight, but the problem was really it was not liquid enough. They had some splits. That's why the price is so low. The price was higher at the time. But you can see how tight this stock got, and then it started to explode here on the upside, and then it created a new pattern. You can see that here after it surged, what is it here? 1,500%, it got tight again, and then it started to follow through again. So, and these stocks that are on the move and made big moves, they can produce a couple of these great setups. And I can show you some or two recent examples here. This is Newegg Commerce. This is just a story stock. They do not have any great numbers or anything like that, but you can see it produced exactly the same setups here. Made a big move, got very tight, and then moved higher afterwards. It was also a little bit too illiquid for me to trade, but it was a great winner. You can see that here. And the same is true here. So if you look back a little bit in time, you can see big move, consolidation, not so tight, and then it followed through. And the other one, which had a similar setup recently, is Zap. So I missed this one. It was also not so liquid, but look at the setup here. It looks exactly like a 5-star setup that I showed you in these other stocks here. It gapped higher and then it followed through very nicely. The most traders, they cannot sit on their hands and wait for these setups. And to be 100% honest with you, I'm also trading other setups. I'm not waiting always for these perfect setups, because you have some other stocks that are not showing these absolutely perfect setups, but were able to deliver very good gains. We caught a couple of them this year, like Ampex and like Joby and some other stocks. But these are the setups that are so perfect that you don't want to miss them if you are able to trade them. So that means if you are, or if they are liquid enough for your account size, or if you are also familiar with this type of setup. And I can only give you one recommendation. And I have that for myself, and I shared that also with my members in the community. Create a model book for you. Create a chart book where you collect all these different stocks and the patterns and go through them over and over and over again to train your pattern brain. And over the time, you will be able to notice these patterns very quickly if you go through the stocks in your screeners, and then you are ready to take action because you know that not very often, but sometimes these patterns lead to big moves, and then you are able to trade them. So I hope that this video helped you to see some 5-star setups and also notice and know what I'm looking for, what we are looking for. You can try out my members community Market Update Premium 14 days for free if you want to see how we work and how we exchange together. It's a community with a lot of very passionate growth and momentum traders.